exclusive episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
We're back. What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. We made a commitment to you that starting in 2025, even though it's 2024, we're going to be bringing you breaking true crime news. And we've got some right now. Been on the air all weekend and back at it right here. I am awaiting two of our best guests, Special Agent Scott Duffy, a regular on the show, as well as retired Special Agent Rob D'Amico, who serves in both the military and the FBI. And they're going to break down what's happening at the moment. Space Coast on the West Coast is with us, of course, and I greatly appreciate that. Space Coast, I don't know if you're able to maybe pull up, I'm trying to think here, possibly local Philadelphia news, if you can, Spacey. If not, no worries. But we have been covering this New York City manhunt, the person who shot and killed United Healthcare Group CEO Brian Thompson. Well, the headline right now is there is a person being held and questioned, in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And I'll be honest, haven't had a chance to do much research, but I'm going to go through this because there's multiple NBC broke the story we did last night. They are breaking this story, and now the New York Times is on it. So I'm going to come to you with some of the details out of this New York Times article. And again, we're waiting for Scott Duffy and Rob D'Amico. Now, we have a regular scheduled program at 12:30 p.m. on Donna Adelson. Depending on which way this goes, I will let you know what is happening. The headline, again, a man is being held for questioning in the killing of health insurance executive Brian Thompson, again, the CEO of the largest privately held insurance company in America, that is the United Healthcare Group, based out of Minnetonka, Minnesota. So that's what's happening. The man, this is very interesting. You always hear law enforcement say, we need the public's help. Well, it appears they got the public's help here, despite a ton of hatred on social media and animosity and animus towards this person. If someone happens to know where, I should know this, but if you know what part of the state Altoona is in, I'm going to have Space Coast try to pull up some local news from that area at the top of the hour, which is 12 noon. I don't know if it's closer to Philly or closer to, let's say, Harrisburg out west, but Altoona, Pennsylvania is what we're talking about. And I see Rich Kaprowski, he is ready to go here. Rich Kaprowski is a retired NYPD detective. Rich, we were talking last night. It's amazing to have you back here. The headline, and we don't know much information, a person of interest is being interviewed in Altoona, Pennsylvania. By the way, Space Coast, it's closer to Harrisburg. If you want to, actually, it's central Pennsylvania. Now I'm hearing Altoona, Pennsylvania is in central Pennsylvania, closer to Penn State, between Harrisburg and Pittsburgh. Spacey, you're good with the Google. If you want to figure out if there's a local station in that vicinity, we could try to tune in 11 minutes. But Rich Kaprowski, very first and obvious question. The headline, I don't even know if you're aware, they're speaking to a person of interest in relation to the shooting death of Brian Thompson. Of course, he is the CEO of United Healthcare Group, who was gunned down Wednesday morning. This person was identified based on a tip from someone who spotted him at a McDonald's, the All-American Way. Here comes Scott Duffy as well. Welcome to Special Agent Duffy. Special Agent Duffy, meet retired NYPD Detective Rich Kaprowski. But Rich, Your take on this could be the beginning of the end for this person if they've got the right guy. And I'll go through some of the other details once we go around the horn here.
Yeah. I mean, it's big news. I mean, I think, for somebody, depending on that tip now, did that tip come, we don't know who did this person, riding the bus with them and saw him, go into a McDonald's. We don't know yet, but there are reports that he had a similar gun on him that was used in the homicide. So that's yet to be seen, because a lot of things, start coming out that aren't that true. So we'll have to wait a little bit to see. But it's great news if this is someone who looks like our suspect.
Yeah, of course it would be fantastic news. Scott Duffy, you were doing your thing, as I do oftentimes. I reached out to you and I said, Scott just dropped out. Let's see if he comes back in. He's been having some Wi-Fi issues. So I'm going to go through this together here, and hopefully we get Scott Duffy on. For those who are just jumping in here, there is a person of interest who police in Pennsylvania, and I'm assuming NYPD detectives are on their way as we speak. They got a tip from someone in the public, based on the some of the photos that have been out there, saying they believe the person was at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. It gets interesting, Rich, because one of the sources, speaking of this, it's the New York Times, that one of the law enforcement officials said that this person that they're speaking to had a gun, a silencer, and false identification cards similar to those that they believe the killer used in New York. That sounds like it's pretty close to possibly being game over. How many people are walking around with a silencer and fake IDs? So walk us through what's happening as it relates to the NYPD right now.
Well, obviously, they'll send a team of detectives up there. Most likely, the detectives who caught this case, they'll head up to Altoona, and when they get there, they're going to assess what he was caught with. They'll look at everything. They'll talk to the officers who stopped him, and speak with the witness, usually before they go in and speak to him. And then, it's all up to that person. If this is our suspect, then, it's kind of handling him with, if you want to say, kid gloves, slowly get into questioning him, as long as he's willing to, have a conversation with the detectives.
Yeah, for those just joining, including Scott Duffy and Rob D'Amico is going to hop on in a minute. We made a promise to you to bring you some breaking news in 2025, and there is big breaking news. By the way, Space Coast, Altoona is 100 miles east of Pittsburgh, so I would maybe check out either Harrisburg or Pittsburgh. I don't know if they have the same local news coverage, but Scott Duffy, this is your Commonwealth, Pennsylvania, obviously further west of you. A man is being held for questioning in connection with the killing of Brian Thompson. Of course, he is the health insurance executive who was gunned down in cold blood Wednesday morning around 6:45 in Midtown Manhattan. The man who's being questioned was identified based on a tip from someone who spotted him at a McDonald's restaurant. Anything more American than that. Now, this is what's really interesting, Scott. This person is said, according to law enforcement sources, said to have been found with a similar gun and what you guys call a suppressor, what most people call a silencer, and false identification cards similar to those they believe that the killer used in New York. Your reaction?
Yeah, I think this is going to come down to one of two ways, or most likely a combination, and that is law enforcement doing their grassroots investigation, picking up every imaginable surveillance footage and talking to witnesses, and then, of course, the public just providing a slew of tips. And so, I imagine that they're getting quite a few of tips with names, and you can't go and speak to each and every one. So hopefully you're going to knock them out with, hey, that doesn't even look like the guy. The background doesn't fit, etc., and be able to knock them out on paper alone. And then those that they feel, hey, let's go pay him a visit, and then come up with additional probable cause. So it's good. It doesn't mean that this is the guy, because having chased down people during a time of one crime or another, you realize, like Murphy's Law, gosh, I was looking for a unique car that you didn't think existed, and now all of a sudden everybody's driving that type of car when you're actually absolutely looking. So there are plenty of people out there who are white males with fraudulent IDs, but having a gun that's similar, it'd be interesting to see if that gun was just in his possession in his home, or if in fact it was on him. That would be a better clue.
Yeah. So this, just to refresh everyone here, is now the manhunt has entered its sixth day. I had a bunch of people on early on Wednesday who said they'll get this guy within 24 hours. But Rich, and it's a big if this is the guy, but if he does have a gun with a silencer, an ID that they're saying resembles the identification that was used, of course, this person used fake ID to get into a hostel on the Upper West Side, then you start thinking, hey, maybe this is in fact the guy. So again, there are just preliminary reports right now, and I'm looking through different sources. One thing I do want to do is open this up to STS Nation. If you have questions, I'm scrolling down to the bottom right now, and Rob D'Amico is going to join us. Triple Qs. So I know, if there is a question. Ironically, I just get a text from my beloved mother, the matriarch of the show, saying, do you think he unalived himself? She's late on the news here. Rich, to that point, if this is the guy, he's floating around Altoona, Pennsylvania at a McDonald's. What do you make of that? I mean, killers, I guess, are people too. So he's grabbing lunch. This guy seems so casual. One interesting thing that I'm just thinking of out loud is, it's on the way to Minnesota, which is where this person resided, where his family is. I don't know if there's any, connection to that at all.
Right.
But Rich, what about, the fact that he's just at a McDonald's and now someone just spots him?
I mean, listen, his pictures everywhere, that we, a partial face. And the tips, as I said last night in the podcast, that there are hundreds of tips coming in. Some that lead to absolutely nothing. But this, I mean, I'm sure that the detectives that are going up there are saying, hey, to the officers there, the guy you have, send us a picture of him, let us look at it. And if it's a similar gun, even if it didn't look like him, they're still going. They're going because did he get the gun? Did he buy the gun from the suspect? So they'll go up there, and they'll do what they do all the time and get to the bottom of it. And again, I mean, still having the gun with him, you could think that, hey, is he on his way to do it to someone else, another CEO, or Brian Thompson's family? Who knows? But hopefully not the case. But I find it very strange that he would still have that gun with him. You're just asking to eventually be caught.
That's a really interesting point. I mean, Scott Duffy, to you, what about that he allegedly has this gun, I mean, that would be pretty crazy, and especially to have it on your person. What do you make of that, Scott, if this is in fact accurate?
Yeah, I would agree. It all depends what type of relationship, and I'll say that in quotations, that a person has with their gun. That gun could be their, they might have used it in other whatever crimes. It's they feel like they can't separate themselves from that gun. Well, I've dealt with gangbangers that have no problem once they've obtained the gun, use the gun, toss the gun. They don't want it to tie back to them. So I think it will also go, if this in fact is the individual and they have the weapon, and then of course similar IDs and whatnot. The fact that he hasn't separated from that gun will lend a little bit more into understanding about this individual. Um, I think as this carries on and we learn more, and then of course law enforcement having much more information that's getting put out, the this individual seems to have put a lot of planning into this, and so he should not equally be surprised that he'll be caught, and probably has something to say. So stay
Um,
tuned.
yeah, we're by the way, we're monitoring local news. We had a pre-scheduled show for 12:30. I'm just going to see how this plays out over the next 30 minutes. But we do have lawyer Lee, for those who know her, big YouTube uh, lawyer, and Joe Patuto talking, because tomorrow is Donna Adelson's court hearing. That's our original big true crime story, and we're going to see. I want to stay on this, obviously, and again, we're expecting Rob D'Amico. Scott Duffy, I got to ask you. I mean, and Rich talked about this a little bit. Put yourself back in your old shoes. You get the call. You're working the case, and they say, we've got a guy who fits the description, who's got a gun with a silencer, who's got fake IDs that resemble the IDs used to get into the hostel on the Upper West Side. We need you to get over there right away. How do you approach this person at the police department? What do you say? How do you introduce yourself? And how do you begin an interview with him?
Yeah, so all the above. Introduction is key. First impression is key in every relationship. So the detectives are establishing a relationship with this guy. And with that being said, the detectives, the police in Altoona, they are spending quite a bit of time, and they want to ensure that everything is done right. That they don't do anything to put this guy at odds with law enforcement. So everything from the introduction, from the first stop, and then of course the waiting. This, from New York to Altoona, I would hope these detectives are jumping on some sort of helicopter flight or something to get them as close to and in that police department. And ultimately, having now 5 days plus in this investigation, those detectives have a lot more information and a lot more background. And so I think with these out there and so forth, they're lending their expertise. It's helping detectives who know how to interview people to be able to um, help initiate that first introduction. And if Altoona did their job, this guy is waiting, and especially if he's sitting in a McDonald's, and I don't know if he's from that area or if he's passing through that area, um, but if he's sitting in that McDonald's with everything on his person or vehicle, whatever that mode of travel, um, he is asking, just like Rich said, he is asking to be caught, and he has a story to tell. That's ultimately what detectives are going to sell him. Hey, you have a story to tell, and we're your conduit. So start talking.
Yeah. Rich, one of the interesting things about this case, it's one of the few murders where there's a public support for the killer, which is hard. I mean, I can't believe I just said that, but there's an NBC headline By the way, other breaking news, just to let you all know, Daniel Penny, who put this man in a chokehold on a New York City subway, he's just been acquitted of all charges. Daniel Penny, the subway chokehold man, acquitted of all charges. So when it rains, it pours. And of course, last night did an entire breaking news show about Jay-Z now being dragged into the Sean Diddy Combs madness. So if you want to catch up on that, we did shows on it. But Rich, there is an NBC headline from over the weekend. Why top internet sleuths say they won't help find the United Healthcare CEO killer. And then I see a tweet right above it from someone named Pinky. I just read this, and I'm glad no one is helping find United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Well, I guess Pinky Tuscadero, it's a Happy Days reference for those old enough, but I guess she's wrong because people were helping. Does the good always outweigh the bad here? In other words, you've got someone in the public, they're going to do the right thing.
Yeah, I totally believe that. There are good people out there, and there are people who are obsessed with police work in general that aren't police themselves. And there's people generally look and say, he was a family man. He had 2 kids. To go and say you're not going to help. I've come across them in my career too. People that were like, well, if I saw him, I wouldn't tell you anyway. But you take it for what it's worth, and you hope that there's good people out there that stumble upon them and would say, hey, I gotta call this in. And even the calls that lead to nothing, you still appreciate them because that still means people do care, and they really want to see some justice here.
Scott Duffy, just to add on to that, according to the sources, and then I want to get a little more heavily into what the NYPD is doing right now, what detectives are. I mean, by the way, Rich, do you think detectives from New York City are already there, and that's why this headline is out?
I mean, it really all depends. I mean, because it's about, I believe, about a 3.5, 4 hour drive. Yeah, I mean, they're probably driving up there. Unless the police commissioner says, hey, you're going to take an NYPD helicopter, we'll get you out there. And that might be done. But it's one or two ways they're getting there. They're either, driving up there or, and also they may be getting from, the other jurisdiction that stopped them. Like, listen, take your time. He's not, he doesn't want to talk, or he doesn't want to, whatever. So they may be, they're going to get up there as fast as they can. And it would be great to take, a flight. I think jumping in the car and going, by the time you get onto a flight and get up there, you probably could be there relatively same time.
Bice just adding in that, Phil, we're going to bring you some local news, but believe it or not, this is why traditional media is dead and we're the new thing, because we jump on stuff. The media is sitting there going through 10,000 hoops to try to figure out what to do, how to do it, whether they can do it, going through legal, all that. And we're being abundantly clear here. We do not know if this is the person, obviously, but there's an indication that it could be the person. KCL, who's on top of everything from Salt Lake, Red detectives from NYPD are on their way to PA right now. Mish, who's coming to us from Cape Town, South Africa. I saw 2 people from the McDonald's. Here's a little bit more news coming in from local NBC in New York. They've got a great investigative team. The police sources say it is too soon, Scott Duffy, to determine if this case is connected to the death of Brian Thompson, but they are investigating it as a potentially significant development. According to the sources, customers at a local McDonald's, this is in or around Altoona, Pennsylvania, thought that he looked suspicious and they called police. This is interesting. Arriving officers noticed a fake ID, so they took him in for questioning. But Scott Duffy, it's not just any fake ID. Once at the police station, the sources said Officers discovered the man had a gun similar to the one used in Thompson's killing, as well as a silencer and a fake New Jersey ID. And that's important. The suspected gunman allegedly used a fake New Jersey ID when he checked into a Manhattan hostel last month. I mean, Scott, how many guys are walking around with silencers or suppressors, as you call them, with a fake New Jersey ID that we know is now used as part of this crime to check into a hostel? I mean, there can't be a lot of those guys around.
No, and I would also think that, so that's information that's coming out. So let's just assume for this show, it is all true. I can only imagine that that's just a smidget of the information that law enforcement in Altoona communicated to NYC detectives, which is nice. So let's just say, for example, they probably already sent pictures of these IDs, and so law enforcement, I don't know if the hostel just looks at the ID and says, hey, it was a New Jersey ID, we wrote it down, or if they took pictures of this New Jersey ID, gave that to law enforcement so they have actually numbers and birth dates and addresses. It would be interesting, because a good undercover agent, police officer, wherever have you, law enforcement, they use things they can remember. So for example, I'll use my birth date, I'll throw off a year. I'll use an address that I know a whole lot about it. So if there's information on this New Jersey ID used in the hostel to any of the IDs that he has on, I bet there's very similar information used, which probably just caught the attention. I don't think NYPD is heading out to every lead across the nation. And if they are indeed en route, something that we're not getting is very good.
And that was going to be my follow-up to, and apologies because I'm kind of multitasking here, but Rich, my follow-up to you, which is something that Scott sort of just, by the way, we are going to hold off on the 12:30 p.m. show on Donna Adelson and try to reschedule that, which is what I'm working on as we speak. But Rich, who's a retired NYPD detective, I mean, would any sources be dumb enough to be speaking to news sources if they weren't pretty confident this is their guy?
No, I don't think they would. But then again, is this the police department in PA that's given out their little tidbits? Because, this all sounds great. But we have to really wait, because I've had tons of cases that we've gotten tips, or another police department has called me and said, we might have your guy here. And, okay, well, what has he got? What is he saying? And go up there or go wherever it is. And it's absolutely not even close, So, a lot of information can get missed, or taken a different way in translation, because I've had people say, no, I meant he looked like this. And like, well, that's not how it got to us, So when I was working, I would usually want to speak directly to the officer who stopped them, not from the officer told the detective in PA to that detective telling me, because that's like telephone, things get totally screwed up. So, yeah, I mean, but all this information, I mean, with the Jersey license, ID, I mean, that's really good information. I mean, I'm sure the detectives are pretty excited as they're heading up there now to say, as long as everything is panning out the way it's being said in the news.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because sometimes, as we know, people in the news are wrong. But Rich, I mean, Scott addressed this to you. KCL's point, so weird to have the gun and silencer on his person. I mean, maybe he had a backpack with him. We've seen backpacks. Maybe it was in a vehicle. We just don't know. But how dumb, for lack of a better word, would it be for a suspect like this to be traveling with that gun and suppressor on his person, unless, he's going to try to do the same thing somewhere else?
Right. It's again, and even Scott said it. Is it is it a sentimental thing that he has that gun with him? Two, is he going to do it again? Or three, is he just that stupid? Like there's no other way. I mean, majority of the homicides that I dealt with, very rarely were we able to find the gun. I mean, I was the lead investigator on a Randolph Holder police officer was killed in New York City, and that was my case. And we had Scuba go into the water and pick up he tried to get rid of the gun. Thank God a witness saw that gun go in the water, and Scuba found it. So for him to hold on to this gun, I mean, that's stupidity 101. I mean, but again, was he going to do it to someone else?
Yeah. By the way, this is obviously video from that fateful day, which was Wednesday morning around 6:45 a.m. Midtown Manhattan. You see the gun there with what looks like a suppressor on it. That's the backpack that they reportedly found in Central Park. By the way, Scott Duffy, because you're more than just an FBI agent. You like to analyze things. Any more thoughts? I don't think we had you on about this, actually. It was found with monopoly money, according to the NYPD. Any thoughts as to why he'd be carrying monopoly money? There's the theory that maybe he thought United Healthcare itself was a monopoly, or that they're making too much money. What kind of statement is that from the suspected killer?
Yeah, and I think from early on, I felt like the information about the writings on the cartridges spent, and then I think one round expelled, that at least from what I have seen, that has not been confirmed by law enforcement, but obviously through law enforcement sources, leaks, whatever you want to call it. That could have been, especially on the day of, and that information getting released, a red herring, something to take you, law enforcement, away from the actual trail of the suspect. And then as time started to develop and starting to see the fact that this guy is doing a very good job in making sure his face is covered pretty much everywhere but one location so far that we know of, where there's a full face or possible full face, if in fact that's the suspect. So he's spending quite a bit of time, day and night, not worried, but ensuring that, hey, let me make sure I'm covering my tracks. It's also possible that this weapon, has personal identifying information that's going to come back to him. Whether he bought it legitimately, if it was tossed and recovered by somebody, it would have come back to him. Sure, he could have reported it stolen, etc., and all that. But I think the monopoly money is just yet another piece. He didn't have to toss that backpack. I think he could have easily found a way to conceal that, take it out, because he knows that law enforcement is going to go over every bit of track that he's traveled. And for him to toss that, I got to believe he knows it's going to be recovered, and it's going to tell another part of my story. And the monopoly money, having played Monopoly for so many years as a kid, get out of jail, go directly to jail, all about, those who have and those who have not. I think it just tells another story, whatever that story is, and possibly leading to a motive for this killing.
Rich, what about what's happening right now? So you talked a little bit about the questioning, but how do you hold a guy like this? Do you have to charge him with something? When could we see a mug shot? What is the process now? And this is also not obviously in New York City. This is Altoona, Pennsylvania, or thereabouts. Would they bring him back to NYPD? Walk us through the steps of how they handle this at this point.
Well, when they get out there, they'll obviously right away assess, hey, this guy looks good, and see what they have. They're going to want to, speak to him as soon as they can, because, then once a jurisdiction starts, doing arrest paperwork and putting them through their system, that just legally becomes a problem for us. So we want them to just, as we call it, keep them on ice for us. And when we get there, we'll speak to him. Now, if he presses the issue that he wants to leave, I mean, they'll put charges on him. He's probably going through a forgery or something for the mistake, for the ID. Plus, he has the gun, so he's not leaving. He's going to stay with them no matter what. So once we get out there and we speak to him, and let's say it is our guy and he confesses, well, then we go through the extradition and locking him up out there and doing an extradition hearing.
Anna Lissette had a comment, Scott Duffy, and you guys have been saying this from the get-go. You don't think he's a professional, but if this guy's caught at a McDonald's with a gun with a suppressor and a set of IDs, one including a New Jersey fake ID that was allegedly used to check in the hospital, this is no professional hitman. So what do you think who this guy is?
Yeah, when I hear professional, I think of somebody who has been hired for a good deal of money to remove somebody from this earth for whatever said reason. And that professional, they do exist, would be able to get in and get out, and then be on to their next job. It's a job, not a game. So this individual, he spent a lot of time in New York, and everything else that law enforcement is recovering. He's not a professional, but he is somebody who I think is doing everything he's doing is very specific. I think it's planned, and I don't think he was looking to get away with this. Maybe for a time, but especially if we're looking at 5 days going into a major city for somebody who's not part of that city, and then to be able to get out and if whether it's the Altoona detained individual or not, this is somebody who is putting enough out there that if he's not looking to do number two, for whatever's going on inside his head, he knows it's only a matter of time before being caught. I really believe he's putting out a story, and I think law enforcement can finish that story for him, by him talking and getting out everything that I think he has a lot to say here. And
do you get the sense he's going to talk though, Scott, because of the story, the kind of storytelling that he put together? Do you get the sense that he's the kind of guy in the interview room who's going to be proud to talk about why he did this and what he did?
That would be my angle going into the interview room if I was a lead detective. I would be using the social media, the internet. If you have people, thousands upon thousands, who are saying he is a hero, not a villain, I would exploit that. That would be my go in and saying that many of your fellow human beings believe you have done good, and that's what an interviewer has to do. And it's not that the interviewer is siding with him. The interviewer needs to figure out, because every case is different, what is my angle to get this individual to talk. Some it's remorse, others it's carrying a weight forever, and then others, hey, the evidence is overwhelming, I'm going to show it to you. and it's this versus that, the good, the bad, the ugly, or you're a cold, calculated murderer and you're going to be locked away forever and disappear. No, I think if this individual is showing enough and there's enough there to say this individual is seeking that public attention, thriving on that public attention, then absolutely I would continue to go with that in order to let him share his story.
For those just joining us, we've been following multiple breaking news stories. Last night, of course, it was revealed that Jay-Z, his name was dragged into the whole Sean P. Diddy Combs. Well, there's more news on that today. Jay-Z has now just filed to dismiss, not shockingly, the lawsuit that was amended to include his name. So there was an original lawsuit in October and then a new one, and he is brawling in a court of public opinion on Instagram and Twitter and elsewhere with this personal injury attorney, Tony Busby. But what's very interesting, just to digress for one moment, in his statements, Jay-Z never once explicitly says he did not commit a crime or do that, which is very interesting to notice that omission, the way it is worded. But he is filing to dismiss the lawsuit. Also, out of New York City, I guess where it rains, it pours. Daniel Penny, the chokehold subway guy, who was being tried, he has just been acquitted of all charges. He is walking free today as a free man. Rich, what about this? The headline here, of course, is the CEO who was murdered in cold blood on a New York City street at 6:46 a.m. this past Wednesday. They believe they have a person that could be the guy in custody in or around Altoona, Pennsylvania, which is about 100 miles east, from what I understand, of Pittsburgh, roughly, or Harrisburg. The question here, Rich, 5 days later, this would be the fifth, or actually like the sixth full day. Why do you think he would only be in Altoona? You think he lives there? It's not a very far way to go in that amount of time. Some people, I guess, would think he'd be in Thailand by now.
Well, I mean, nowadays with cell phones and the internet and everything, people, he could have been on the bus headed to wherever, and got the sense that people on the bus may have, hey, this guy looks familiar, and they stopped in Altoona or somewhere close to, and he said, I better get off and spend some time here and hide out and see what he can do. Maybe he's running short on cash too. There's endless possibilities. Maybe he once stopped or passed through Altoona and likes it. We don't know, but yeah, I mean, what's the best part of this is that somebody actually, one or two people actually called. So that's reassuring.
And I'm just monitoring some feeds here. The question again, and this is interesting because Fox News Digital has something on this, Scott Duffy, and it's quoting. Do you know Paul Morrow, Rich, former NYPD inspector? Yeah, so he's quoted in this Fox News Digital article as saying, the question everybody is wondering is, how did he know that the CEO, COE is my COE, would be walking down the block at that precise time? I mean, Scott Duffy, that's a big X factor in this whole case, is that he seemed to know. And if you recall, he was on the phone just prior to the killing. But how would he know this? Is this something that police in Altoona or the NYPD are going to be questioning about in the coming moments, minutes, hours, etc.?
I would think that would be big on law enforcement's things to answer. So you have a CEO of a company Now, I have quite a few friends, retired, local, and federal, who are on protective details of one CEO or executive of another of a company. And there's quite a few just within the Philadelphia region. And they are with him. They're, in other words, anytime that exec is in public eye, those protective detail are going with him or her. So my initial thought was, before video started popping out and whatnot, that was there a firefight? Did somebody run after him? Did somebody chase him? And thinking the somebody being a protective detail. So the question that I have had, that I know law enforcement has had, is, does he typically have protective detail? And if he has, why not at that moment? Was it that he said within a 1 minute, hey, I'm walking from hotel to hotel, it's 1 block, it's a few feet, whatever, and stay here, or feel free to come on over. Once I get situated, I'm okay. I don't know enough about if an individual who's a protectee says, you know what, I feel comfortable going here to there without my protection detail. I would imagine the protective detail said, that's very nice. However, you're not going, if we're going to accommodate you. And so those questions I would want to, where it could be, no, this is the way he always does it. He does not like his protective detail in certain areas. And so thereby this guy just exploited a vulnerability. It's a coincidence. But if he's always under guard and this is an anomaly, it is not something that is his normal routine, still could be a coincidence. But then I would start to go into, is there someone on the inside providing information? For example, how well publicized to the general public was this conference? All those things that would be answered by law enforcement. And I can guarantee you they have those questions.
Yeah, by the way, a theorist here saying, so they lied to us when they said they knew his identity. To be clear, I don't think anyone in the NYPD said that was coming from Mayor Adams of New York City, who kind of floated that out there. He's, former retired NYPD, but I don't think the NYPD themselves said that. Rich, to you, I mean, there's a million questions, and we're going to stay on this for a little bit because I want to see if this turns into more. Obviously, one thing you can commend the NYPD for is getting all this footage out and still photos, because the person is saying they saw it off of a wanted poster. You have these too. Is that always the biggest source of help to you guys, is the public? Because there's only so many detectives and only so much ground you can cover. Is it any surprise that they're saying that the person who called police, or persons, there might be two, said that they recognize the guy from these types of posters?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's that's why we put them out. That's why we do that, because it is a huge help. Besides, confidential informants that help out a lot on cases too. It's a great tool to use to get their photo out. And as to, the NYPD knowing his identity or didn't know, we spoke about it last night too. We don't know at this point. They may have a name, and they said, okay, who's the guy you have in Altoona? What's his real name? And they come up with the name that NYPD already has as a tip. That just makes it even bigger, that this could be the guy. So we're not going to know that until later on, if we ever find that out. But yeah, the public helps out tremendously.
Rob D'Amico has joined us. I'm going to get to you in 1 second here. This comment's interesting. Just to Scott Duffy, I can't believe he didn't just go dumpster diving for food or something. Why would he go into public? Scott Duffy, it's not that easy to be a successful criminal, right? I mean, you got to live, got to eat, you got to move around. this person might be surprised. Are you surprised not dumpster diving and that he's in a McDonald's getting a Big Mac?
No, not from what we've seen. The fact that went to a Starbucks. I mean, that costs money, especially in New York City. What doesn't cost money in New York City? But I think this guy is wanting to have put everything out there. And I was just even thinking, how much cash do I need to finance 2 weeks or thereabouts in New York City? Even if I'm eating on the cheap, sleeping on the cheap, it's still going to cost money. It costs money to board a bus, costs money for any type of transportation. So he has the means. And so to be in Altoona in a McDonald's is far enough away. And yet at the same time, extremely close. And if you can live just as a regular Joe Schmo, you can hide anywhere in plain sight. So that's why the fact that he's acting suspicious and whatnot, that's what I would like to know, what that suspicious was to cause two people who are probably having coffee, looking at him and saying, "You think? Do you want to call 911?" "No, I'm not going to call 911." They're probably debating if, in fact, it's two people, and then say, "Let's just do it," because he's doing something as opposed to just eating a egg McMuffin. He is doing something that caused those people to reach out to 911.
I mean, maybe he's eating with a mask on, or he definitely got a hoodie on. Who knows? But Rob D'Amico, retired military, retired FBI, not just any FBI, part of the exclusive HRT team. He knows a lot about firearms. Rob D'Amico, I called you. I said they've got a guy. When you heard this news? What was your initial reaction to it?
At first, when you said they got someone who had a similar gun, so I didn't put as much credibility into that just because those are out there. But when I heard possibly had his driver's license, fake New Jersey's driver's license, and then he had been recognized by a couple of people in McDonald's, and that starts adding up those factors that they may have something here, especially like I forget if it's Scott or Rich who said that if they called back and said, "Hey, this is the ID that we got with them, does it ring a bell?" And the folks in New York are like, "Yeah, that's the name we got." Not that even if it was different, because I think the MO of having a fake New Jersey driver's license, if he had one, he may have a couple. So definitely running down those indicators, but I don't expect I don't expect them to have much from the scene that they can match. I think he changed his code. Obviously, he ditched his backpack and stuff. And I know you're talking about like, hey, the funds to do this. You would have thought when you looked at it after, and he planned bicycle to taxi to bus. He stayed in New York 10 days. That took some money to do it. I started thinking, well, he has a pretty good plan on the outside. Maybe he got an Airbnb, stocked up on food, so he didn't have to go outside to the public when they're looking for him. That's what I would have thought he did. Now, again, if it's not him, he may be doing that. But going out in the public at McDonald's with your face all over the news, does not sound like the well-planned left of X that we saw right after this.
Yeah. Rich, by the way, being joined, if you're new to Surviving the Survivor, we've got the best guests in true crime. Hands down, not a tagline. It is our reality. Got retired NYPD, retired FBI on the panel who've been covering this case with us. And they believe they have a person of interest in custody who had a similar gun used to the one used to kill CEO Brian Thompson of United Healthcare. That gun had a suppressor, according to reports. This person had a gun with a suppressor, aka a silencer. Also, this person reportedly had 4 fake IDs, one of which was a New Jersey fake ID, which was reportedly the type of ID used to get into a hostel. Look at Robin Ray. I'm so glad I just checked STS. I knew you'd be live. This is the new media right here. Rich Krowski, to you, retired NYPD detective. How quickly are they running a background check on this guy? So, in other words, in Altoona, are they running his name, or at least the name that he gives them, through his system to see if he has any priors? And what do you do with that?
Yeah, they're running it. NYPD. I'm sure the guys that are working on this case that are back, not going to Altoona, are running everything they can find on him. Again, and being in Altoona, and is this guy just saying to them, "I'm not giving you my name," and that's my name on that driver's license, the Jersey driver's or the ID. Is he combative, or is he being cooperative? Eventually, when he's processed for the Altoona crimes, we'll know who he is, and then even more of a background check will go. But if he gives his real name, then you got both jurisdictions. I'm sure FBI, everybody's running them.
Rob D'Amico, I kind of asked this to Scott, but I'm curious your take. And the question, I believe, was asked by KCL, but you surprised that a guy who's wanted like this, who's this high profile, committed such a heinous crime, that he's bold enough to just be out at a McDonald's? Or is this typical for non-professional criminals who are just dumb enough to think that they're not going to get caught?
Criminal stupidity never ceases to amaze me. Like we talked about, writing the bank job note on your own deposit slip is one of the most famous ones. But when you looked at it, like I thought at first, crime of passion, he did what he wanted to do, what he fantasized to do, and then he ran. And I didn't think a lot of planning went into, like I said, left to X being the ambush site. But then I started seeing other things that started indicating more that maybe he had a better plan to get away with it. And he had a place already booked up, like out of public and food there, so he didn't have to go out. And now if it's him and he went to McDonald's, you're kind of like, oh, what happened? But again, every criminal will have good moments and bad moments supposedly in their planning. Like they do something really well and then they do something really stupid. So it never surprises me when you're talking about criminals on some of the stuff that they do to plan for it, and then some of the dumb things they do either during planning or after. And you're just like, wow, but the more you're in law enforcement, the more surprises. And then we just talked about fingerprints. So I think I worked on a fingerprint system so we could print guys over in Iraq that went back to the States, and we end up having it where you can print a guy on target and 2 minutes later find out if he's ever been fingerprinted in the US through satellite. That's down to the phone now. That was way back in the day. Now they have it on the phone. I don't know if Altoona has that system or not, but you can get instant replies on a set of 10 prints back from CGIS, which is there in West Virginia. So I would think and also I believe you have to submit fingerprints for a suppressor, for the ATF stamp to get a suppressor. So if he actually had that legally, his prints would be on file with that. I don't know if ATF's fingerprints, I don't know how they're put in the system. I know they have to do a lot of paper searches on gun registrations, but I think those fingerprints are actually put into CGIS that would be on file, that if someone ran them. So if he had this suppressor, quote, legally and paid the ATF stamp, they'd at least have that on file for him.
I'm always curious about this. Rich, this is your world, your wheelhouse. So talk to me about, they get this report. We don't know exactly what time it came in, of a suspicious person at a McDonald's in Altoona who happens to have a weapon with a suppressor and 4 fake IDs, one of which is a fake New Jersey ID, which is said to have been used at the hostel. How soon from that, or maybe not how soon, how did this go through the different levels of the NYPD? Someone gets this tip from Altoona. How soon before this is in the chief of detectives' hands that they might have a person in Altoona? The chief of detectives is Joe Kenny, who's a friend of Rich's. Just tell us the process within the NYPD of how this information got funneled through the NYPD and then how they responded to it.
So it all depends on where the Altoona police or state police, whoever found this individual, they'll either call directly to, it's probably maybe Manhattan South Homicide, or maybe the precinct covering, or they call the tip line, or and that gets funneled then from, if they call the tip line, that goes straight right to the chief of detectives office. He'll find out, but also it'll also be called into the catching detectives, and they'll jump on it. I'm seeing right now that it looks like they have the crime scene unit heading out to PA also. So that's
explain that. So you got the crime scene investigators. What are they going to do at this McDonald's or around this McDonald's?
Well, what they're going to do is they'll it's not so much the McDonald's. They're going to go to the precinct, and they're going to process that handgun. They're going to photograph it. They're going to probably take it into custody from Altoona, and that becomes a whole legal thing. But they'll eventually get, being that the crime scene guys are heading out there right now, that's real good. That they're pretty sure. I don't want to say positive or anything like that, but they're excited that this could be the guy, and they'll process that gun.
This is wild. Again, for those just tuning in, we're talking about the CEO murder in Manhattan. There's been a manhunt underway. This is day 6, I believe. They got a tip of a suspicious person inside a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, which is about 100 miles east of Pittsburgh, I believe. And now the NYPD is sending teams out there to speak to this person and obviously try to process the scene.
I would say they're probably on a helicopter. It's about 277 miles. NYPD has helicopters. You get your first folks out there on a helicopter and then have the rest, start driving.
Yeah. Rich, is Joe Kenny on that helicopter, the chief of detectives? Does he take this into his own hands?
No, probably not. Joe will probably be like, listen, get the guys there ASAP. But Joe will be number one point of call, right, from everything that happens in Altoona.
I'm just looking through what you guys typically have to go through. One of them, obviously, Scott Duffy, is what Rich was talking about, which is evidence collection. Talk to me about that. Because now this crime scene is extended from Manhattan all the way west to Altoona, which is practically Pittsburgh. What do you do with a swath, an area that wide? Do they have to now look for things between? If you remember with Brian Koberger at University of Idaho, he went the other way. He went from Idaho or Pullman, Washington, all the way to Pennsylvania, and authorities followed that route to see if they could find anything. Are they going to have to do this the other way now? Are they going to have to send Scott Duffy investigators, to look for things, which is like a needle in a haystack, from Manhattan to Altoona?
Yeah, and so anytime that something is recovered, so like New York City, finding the backpack a few days later, going wherever they can, if they find a video surveillance of him actually doing something, right? And that's how they're recovering trash. They're not just picking trash out randomly. Those are all individual crime scenes, and they are with the tremendous amount of care, as I know we would. And so thereby, now let's just say this is the individual. You now have an endpoint, and you're going to backtrack, and that is with bus records, train, whatever modes of transportation. And then if he's being cooperative, which I would hope he would, then he can provide additional things to say, hey, the The actual ID, if it's not in his custody, that I used to get in the hostel, that I tossed here. Did you find it? If you didn't, this is where you can go locate, and things like that. So anytime you're recovering a new piece of evidence, a tremendous amount of time and care going, and that would be an individual crime scene. So that way you would have the proper security, recovery, and then be able to release it. And then that's not to those are public places. So imagine all the private places that they might have to get into, all these different jurisdictions, and getting search warrants. That's it's a bit time consuming.
Yeah. Scott Duffy, not done yet here. Susan Hicks comes to us from Tallahassee, friend of the show. There's an FBI office less than an hour from Altoona. You probably know that. Scott comes to us from the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. What are your former cohorts at the agency near Altoona? What are they doing right now?
Yeah, I would think Rob would agree with me that they are already there. There's got to be some representative, and that's because of New York bringing the FBI in the onset. So I imagine they are there. I was just up there a month ago for training, Altoona, Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, and whatnot. So yeah, it's that's why I'm saying it is a bit of a hike. I live in PA, and it was a good 4+ hours for me, 4.5, and that's with a bit of a lead foot. So yeah, I would totally suspect that representatives from the resident office are there.
Looking through the comments here, there's a question, Rob D'Amico, a jurisdictional question, which Rich kind of briefly talked about, but you've got a New York City manhunt. The NYPD is all over this case. The guy is called in. He's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. We do not know if it is him, but it is a person of interest who was reportedly found with a gun, with a suppressor, with 4 fake IDs, including one from New Jersey, which is the type of ID that was used at the hostel. What about jurisdiction now, Rob D'Amico? Who takes charge of this case? I mean, the NYPD is the NYPD. Do they come in there and say, get out of the way? Because then we got you guys too, the FBI, and you're saying, no, now it's us. How does all that play out?
No, that's old days, FBI, like we say, die hard, like, gotta get new FBI guys when the helicopter crashes. But what you don't want, though, is everyone who touches a piece of evidence has to be able to be called. So you don't want a whole bunch of different chains of custody for evidence. So if we know NYPD is coming out, and the Bureau doesn't want to get like right smack in the middle of the investigation either. If you know NYPD is sending detectives out, and you know they're sending their evidence folks out, there's no reason to go from Altoona to FBI, then back to NYPD with the evidence. Keep it there. Have someone ability to testify that they got whatever they have from the subject until it turns over to NYPD. That makes a cleaner chain of custody for when it goes to court. So you don't have to, if there's for some reason that they couldn't, or if it was going to the FBI lab or one of those things, then you can, but you always just want a clean chain of custody. You want a clean investigation where you don't have to call 18 different agencies when you go to court. So I think that they know NYPD is coming out. They're more than capable of doing their own lab work and everything else. Keep it a clean chain of custody. If something later has to go to the FBI lab, there's a whole process for that. But in the field like this, you just want it clean. You want to go from one agency to another. You can have someone there if he makes it. The big thing is if he's talking to Altoona before he was detained, he didn't have to be read his rights. As soon as they suspected him and they maybe detained him, then you're going to have to read him Miranda rights. But if he utters something without being questioned, those are all admissible. And again, you want to be able to talk to them. So if the FBI shows up and they see something, but that will be worked out. You just want a clean investigation, and NYPD going there is going to give you that.
Yeah. More details coming in, which I suspected would happen while we're live on the air. And I just want to caution everyone, whenever there's a big breaking news story like this, reports are sometimes inaccurate. But there is a report, Scott Duffy, saying that he was got into Altoona on a Greyhound bus, which makes sense because they thought he left from Port Authority in New York City up north. And now the New York Times and others are reporting that he has a manifesto on him. You know, seeing this, the first guy I always think of is the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. A lot of these guys with sort of political ideologies or corporate ideologies, they carry manifestos. What does all this mean? I mean, the bus is not really a surprise. What about the fact that this person has a literal manifesto on their person?
Yeah, I think that would lend to the fact that he's doing this and with an agenda, and that agenda, unknown to us, is I targeted an individual, and I targeted the individual for said reasons. Perhaps in that manifesto, if that exists, that there's a list of other individuals. If it's not against United Healthcare per se, but against the industry broader, that will all be known. But there are manifestos that can just be a lot of ranting, and so in this case, you have an individual. If it's in fact the individual, and police are able to put those fantastic pieces of evidence together to tie him to the actual crime scene and so forth, great. And then they have somebody who is still alive that can provide further details of what that manifesto might mean. But it to me, with the monopoly money and these writings and these other things that are coming about, if they are all true, that he has a story to tell, and it was only a matter of time before he was caught.
And Joe, I'd like to say,
Go ahead.
just, he's actually, if he does have a manifesto and it's a detailed one, I'll tell you, he's making this real, easy for the investigators. I mean, he wants to be caught, or has it in his mind. Once he gets caught, they have all the information. I mean, but and looking, if this was my case, and all this stuff, I'd be like, wow, he's given us a lot of work. He's given the detectives, trust me, it's a lot of work. But at least if he does say, I'm not going to talk to you, it's all in my manifesto, here it is, well, then we have a story. But with that, sir, I have to run out. I have
Rich, thank you,
appointment.
man. Greatly appreciate it. And Scott and Rob, just let me know when you guys got to jump. Rich is retired, NYPD. Thanks a lot, Rich. I might call you later in the day, man.
No problem. Stay safe, guys.
My big thing is, like, he kept the gun. I mean, that's like, the manifesto is going to help and all this, but the gun, if it is the same weapon used in the shooting, all the tool marks, all the casings, that just, that's the huge thing. Like, why didn't he get rid of it? Never know. Again, if it's him, and he got off a bus in Altoona, I would have been going for the first river I saw that had and tossed that thing, or I would have got off a couple towns beforehand, tossed the gun, got on another bus.
Yeah. And by the way, there are tons of rivers out there to do that too.
Exactly. But again, the manifesto is that story. He wants to be heard and stuff. So it sounds to me, if he's carrying that around and the gun, he knew this day was coming, and was just like, okay, this is what I want to be known for, almost.
I mean, Scott, this, my fear of prisons. This guy's reported to possibly be in his mid-20s. I just can never wrap my head around the fact, okay, you do this, you make a big name for yourself, but now you're spending the next 70 years locked up behind bars. Why is this guy not thinking that way? That's number one. Mish, coming to us from South Africa, does the panel still think it was a hired hit after hearing about a manifesto? Scott, if you want to take both those.
Yeah, I mean, even without the manifesto, it didn't seem like a hired hit. That doesn't mean that somebody might not have, like, provided him information that can be useful into pinning down the target where necessary. But you may have two ideologues that communicated online and found each other, and but I do feel most of these individuals are loners, and if in fact the manifesto is on him, the fact that he has all this in his possession and doing quite a bit goes to show, does he have, like, it would be really interesting to see where he actually resides. Was he able to stop off at a storage residence, whatever have you, pick up some items? Because I know how difficult it is traveling just 2 days or 3 days and trying to keep everything in a not tight backpack and whatnot, get on and off any type of transportation I'm taking. So it's, we're now looking at 3+ weeks of this guy possibly being on the road, leading up to, and then of course the exit plan. So it will all be quite interesting when all said and done. But it would lend more into this guy, for whatever reason, made it his life's mission, and that's what he's thinking. He's not thinking of, well, I don't want to go to jail. I don't think that's really part of his thinking. He may be lacking in some critical thinking skills here.
That would be an understatement, I think. Rob, people always ask, why do you always say Rob's first and last name? It just goes together. Rob D'Amico. I like saying it. So Rob D'Amico, such a great Jersey name too.
I ever tell you a story about, I met a guy from headquarters, FBI headquarters at a happy hour. And we'd been on a bunch of emails. He was in the international ops division. I was doing all that crazy pirate stuff. And some of it got chaotic. And he goes, and I introduced, I said, hey, I'm Rob D'Amico. And he goes, oh, your first name's Rob? I always thought your first name was effing. He said it out loud because I never heard your last name without effing in front of it, because people at headquarters did not like me at times. So I thought that was funny. I'm like, hey, can I use that? I took it as a badge of honor that people at headquarters call me effing D'Amico. But
that's funny.
Yeah.
By the way, that's what Phil Waters, our regular Friday guest, said. He's not supervisable. That's what he was told. Meanwhile, Scott,
I like that one too. Yeah.
Rob, how soon before we get a name here? What will law enforcement have to do before once we get a name? We're going to get a full picture of what's happening.
What you want to prevent is when they release a full name, people are going to figure out where he lives, and you want to do a search warrant, obviously, on where he lives. So you want to be able to get that search warrant, get the police over there. That's a lot of times with school shooters, that they don't release it because they want to get everything in place. They have to get a hold of the family.
Rob, hang on 1 second. I'm just going to bounce in here. Hold on.
When police arrived and began to question the man, they realized he was carrying a fake New Jersey ID. And at that point, they took him to the local police department for more questioning. That's when they found a weapon that he was carrying, a gun similar to the one believed to have been used in the shooting, as well as a silencer and that fake driver's license. Sources now tell us they are also looking to see if that man traveled to the Altoona, Pennsylvania area recently on a Greyhound bus. As you'll recall, last week, the NYPD said the suspect in this case is believed to have arrived in New York City via a Greyhound bus that originated in the Atlanta area. Guys,
this entire active manhunt has just really captivated the country, Valerie. But meantime, we can't forget the victim. Sources tell us that Thompson will be laid to rest today. And we also know United Healthcare, as well as other companies, are taking now extra precautions in the wake of this shooting. What do we know?
Yeah, Morgan, in the days following the shooting, United Healthcare actually put up fencing around its headquarters in Minnesota. They issued a statement saying that they have been partnering with local law enforcement to ensure a safe work environment. We're told that other insurance companies have also been seeking out additional risk management and help from private security in the wake of what happened here.
All right, Valerie Castro here in New York. Thank you so much, Valerie.
We are also following another breaking news.
By the way, I believe that was NBC News streaming there, so or possibly local. I'm not 100% sure, but I did not realize that today is the funeral for this CEO. Condolences to the family. Obviously, a tragic day, but it would be ironic if they catch the guy the same day that he's being laid to rest. Rob, over here, what's the status on gun/bullet markings being used as evidence? Thought that theory had been debunked. What can they do with this weapon to, oh, Scott just rolled out.
I thought he was raising his hand to answer that question.
So did I. So did I.
Yeah.
So it's down to two, me and you. But what about bullet markings?
That's absolutely, it's not debunked. It's one of the oldest methods of evidence for a gun. You have several different things. How a gun chambers around, it leaves certain markings on it. When you shoot a bullet, the barreling that it goes through down the markings from the barreling, when the bullet goes down the barrel, it spins and the barrel makes certain marks on a bullet. So when they recover it, those will be compared. There's so much when you have the gun that has done a crime. That's one of the most powerful pieces of evidence, especially it was on him. It wasn't in a car. It wasn't like, oh, it was in my apartment. Someone put it in there. It's on him. And if they match all those tool marks and everything else with the gun, those are really tough to get over. And since like CSI came out on TV, when you talk to prosecutors and detectives and everything else, investigators, the jury expects like some really big evidence things. Like some of it gets to be a problem when you don't have it, because they want what you see in CSI, and some of it's not realistic, so to speak. But if you get the gun, it's so big. They have rounds that were loaded by him too. Do those rounds match? They'll look at when the firing pin hits the primer on the round, it makes a certain indentation that they will again compare to what this gun does. So they'll take the gun in and they'll end up shooting the gun to get the rounds from it to look at that. And then when the casings come out, again, they'll do all their testing on the gun before they actually shoot it. And then they'll shoot the gun and then take those rounds, compare them to the ones that were shot, the ones that were in the victim. I think he had one in his back, one in his calf. He missed one, so they'll find that round. And then they'll compare the casings in there. Even the rounds that were chambered on the ground, they'll compare it to the rounds that he has on them.
And I know I was asking you this and things got a little crazy, but in terms of a name, you think we get that soon? A name on this individual? We're already getting obviously the fact. And by the way, it was apparently an elderly person who called this in, doing his or her due diligence, and they should get that FBI reward, I would think. Is that true, Rob? And also, what about the name?
I think the reward, the bureau one goes to arrest and conviction, so he'll have to wait a little bit. That's one of those caveats that they throw in there, so to speak. And then what was your other?
About a public name.
I do think when they identify him right now, if they have a name, the true name that they think he is, they're starting to find out again where he actually lived and his family members, and they're writing that search warrant now. How that goes through, they'll have to figure it out. What jurisdiction it's in. That one, maybe the bureau does do because of jurisdiction and stuff, but they're writing that search warrant out because they want to search where he lives, and they don't want a whole bunch of people showing up beforehand. One thing that we started doing in school shootings, a lot of the school shooters knew we would search their house or where they lived. And then they started setting booby traps for the police that actually come to that. There's a few things they do that I'm not going to say on air. But they will probably take a lot of precautions in doing that search warrant, because again, these people know that they're going to eventually get caught, and the police are eventually going to search their premises. So they lay traps or booby traps for the police response. So if it's an apartment, they'll clear it out. They'll do some things in order to make it safe for everyone. So they don't want to come out with that name before they have these things in place to lock stuff down. Again, they want to be able to talk to family members without the huge crowds of media and everything else. And they don't want vigilantes or, in this case, hell, it could be people supporting them from everything we've seen on the air. So they know once that name gets released, a lot of things are going to happen, and they want to be in place. They want to have people and things in place to be able to mitigate those.
So Rob, I gotta plan my day. If you had to get, is it going to be released today, later today?
I think today. It would be, I think, later. I think, again, you can knock out a search warrant like this fairly quickly. You can prep, depending on who's going to have jurisdiction. You can start prepping the court to be able to do those. It's what's going to come out is if he had second place to live that haven't come out after that, maybe coming from public. Oh yeah, he lived by me, or he was renting this Airbnb. I saw the guy when the name comes out. So, but the primary ones, I think they're going to be prepped, and they're already starting. The lawyers are already, and they may have written search warrants with blanks in it to be able to go quickly when they get it.
By the way, we're going to come back on once we learn his identity. A few more things for Rob, then we'll take a little bit of a break. Yours truly has parent-teacher conferences. Another reason to not have kids in school today, yet again. This is an interesting question, Rob, from Cooler by the Lake, friend of the show here often, and it is always cooler by the lake. Just go to Chicago. I wonder if you had financing from others, how quickly are they going to be looking at a possible conspiracy, help from somebody else? We saw the video of him being on the phone. Is that something they dig into right away? What do they do?
The first thing is protecting the phone. If he has a phone on him, you put it in a Faraday bag, because some people have certain things on phones. We found this with terrorists and stuff. They'd have things on phones that could delete all the data if you didn't do things right. So you get in a Faraday bag so no radio waves can hit it. And then you can start exploiting the phone. And then you start looking at search warrants. So you're going to look at everything from bank accounts. That takes a little bit of time. Again, you want to protect what is vulnerable. The phone itself is vulnerable until you get it in the safe environment. So that's what's happening now. As soon as they get the full name, they're going to start looking for the bank accounts. They're going to start looking on the phone. You can look for the Venmos, the Cash Apps, all those other things that are going to leave electronic trail of money movement.
There's more news. This is interesting. Speaking of names, I'm debating. I don't think I want to release it. It's in the chat, but Rob, there is, okay, so NBC New York, that's the local NBC station, just posted, and I quote here, 2 senior law enforcement officials say that the man in Altoona being questioned had the name blank blank on his fake New Jersey ID. Gunman checked into the hotel using a fake name. I don't want to say the name because there might be a real one of these guys, but what do they do with a fake name? It could be his real name. We just don't know. I'll just leave it as first name is Mark with a C, but they have a last name on this fake ID. What are they doing with that name right now, Rob?
Well, again, like if they think it's a fake ID and it's not his real name, I'm helping a friend out on a scam case, and I believe same thing. The guy had a fake New Jersey driver's license. It's I think they find a name, or it was a neighbor who lived next to him or something along that they get this name and they can put an address to it. And it sounds somewhat useful that they came up with. So if it's fake, you kind of really want to hold that back because it's probably belongs to actual somebody. And then you get a whole bunch of people showing up at someone innocent's house. Remember, the FBI got in a lot of trouble with Richard Jewell in the Atlanta Olympic bombing, because it got out that we're, looking at him as a suspect when he wasn't guilty. It was, he had all the markings that from the profilers. I want to say that, FBI didn't leak that. It came from a local PD source that doesn't have the same type of situational awareness on stuff. But we got in a lot of trouble because it hurt him a lot, and he wasn't obviously the one that did it. So if he had if what we believe is fake has a name to it, we definitely kind of don't want to release that, because he probably got it from someone real. He probably looked something up, and a better fake ID has a person's name and real address that it goes back to. It's just your picture's different. So he could have found an ID. He could have got an ID somehow and put his picture on it. Don't know how he actually made this false ID. But most likely, if it's a fake name, you're not going to want to release that.
Yeah, with the way the world is, though, it's already out there. That's why I don't want to say it here. Someone in the chat did mention it. Rob D'Amico, something I'm thinking about, and this is something I admittedly don't fully understand. So now this quote unquote crime scene has potentially moved to Altoona. But if you're back in New York City, are investigators still looking for the gun? Are they still looking for other evidence? What is happening there?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many people involved. You don't turn anything off until even if they, confirm it's probably the same guy, and you don't turn other things off. You have enough resources to do those parallel investigations that you're going to have to do anyhow. If it was a smaller PD and you have to prioritize, well, you're going to take one over the other. You may, if you didn't have enough evidence teams, you may lock one scene down while you process another one. NYPD has plenty. They're sending their guys out, and frankly, right now, it's not a large crime scene. He was in McDonald's. They don't know if he had a hotel. They don't know if he was sleeping out somewhere. They don't know if he made a stop. So that timeline of his movements at that point, if he has a phone with him, then you're going to start looking electronically where that phone was. Did it stop, while he was on a bus? Did that bus come to a stop and he took another one? So that whole timeline is going to dictate if it's a multi-stage crime scene. Like if he stopped in a town, even if he got off to eat at a diner, the bus stopped and he got on another bus, then you're going to have to potentially look at, did he drop something there? So they don't know exactly how big it is. They know him, the ID, the gun are kind of a crime scene in itself in Altoona. If he stayed at a hotel, if they get information that he stayed at a motel or something like that, then that's going to also be a scene. They'll lock that down until they can get the right folks there.
Yeah. By the way, we're being joined for the first time right now by retired NYPD detective, 27 years, David Sarney, who is a professor, I believe, teaching at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, which is, if not the best in the nation, certainly close to it. David, welcome. We're meeting here for the first time. Tell me your reaction to this news that they may have the person who did this in custody. It's a big may, but it sounds like things are leading that way.
Well, the benefit is, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And by the way, Rob D'Amico, retired FBI and military, is the other guest.
Pleasure, Rob. Pleasure to meet you. The one thing about these cases and being on the job as long as I have, there was no holds barred on this. The investigation was thorough, has been thorough, continues to be thorough. What you see now, some of the interesting things that have developed are good. And as Rob said, I think the best way to look at it is it doesn't end. The case doesn't end with an apprehension. It's continuous. You have a person of interest. Benefits are that has items on him that will be beneficial probably to the investigation and to determine motive, which is great too. But you still have to make sure you get all the I's dotted, T's crossed, because if this, you make an arrest, probable cause to get the arrest, to get a conviction, you want to make sure you have every stick of evidence available to you. So this way, this case is solid, that it doesn't, there's no chance of the person, if this is the right person, all the information and facts and evidence that's been obtained are going to be in that trial and used to convict him. Again, we're all dealing with right now witnesses to proving guilty in court of law, but you're seeing a lot of things coming down into place today.
Mish, who comes to us from Cape Town, South Africa, loves this is the real New York accent you're hearing from David Sarney, not the Cape Town, South Africa accent. David, you could tell right away he's got tons of experience. So I'm always curious, and Rob D'Amico knows a lot of these answers, but as it pertains specifically to the NYPD, by the way, we've been on the air about an hour and 34 minutes. For those who are just joining, of course, we're talking about the manhunt for the shooter who killed this person, Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare Group, just 50 years old. Leaves behind a wife and two children, one out of high school, one in high school, both said to be phenomenal athletes. The most disturbing thing, in my opinion, about this case is that there are people who are cheering on the shooter. Today, by the way, we're learning that he is being laid to rest. Rob, let me ask you a quick question, and then we'll kind of go. I'm going to go back to David about what's happening within the NYPD. But someone put up a comment, and I thought at first that maybe it was a joke, but I don't think it is. And it's actually interesting. At first, we thought these were etchings on the bullet casings, but apparently they were written with a Sharpie. If he does have a Sharpie, let's say, on him in a backpack right now in Altoona, Pennsylvania, can they compare Sharpie residue? And is that the first time anyone has ever asked you that?
It is. And I don't exactly know, but I did, like, I always got surprised. Some of the stuff you see on CSI, I'm like, oh, that's BS. And then some of it, I would go into FBI lab and I would meet someone who was doing some crazy stuff. And we had our own, she was a chemical engineer.
Rob, hang on one sec, because I just want to give, we're getting breaking news here as we go. Space Coast, I know it's just me and you, man, and I don't want to be crazy, but can you pull up WABC? Looks like Mayor Adams is going to be speaking in 15 minutes. WABC in New York City. If we can grab that. Thanks. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah. So like I said, it never surprised me. The FBI has their own chemical engineer. We had an antenna doctor, literally had a PhD in antenna theory to do all kinds of stuff. So if they have a Sharpie, they're going to look for a way to connect it to, what was written on those shell casings. And again, they may have some crazy thing to say this, Sharpie wrote on this. But again, if you have the gun and you have the bullets that, that were in the victim, comparing those to tool marks that we talked about before, that's going to be the most powerful. Everything else then just gets to be, I don't want to say icing on the cake, but to support that really, the gun is such a long time piece of evidence that how we compare it and how we say it's the gun that did something is really powerful. And the fact that that was on him. But again, anything else to support it is going to just be added on, and they're not going to take a chance. Like David said, you don't want anything to be thrown out. So everything you're going to do perfectly the right way in this, so that every piece that you can throw at this guy is going to be thrown at him.
This is a couple of interesting things. There's a lot of developments going on. Again, if you're just joining, they've got a person of interest. For whatever reason, Detective Phil Waters, who we have on every Friday from the Houston PD, despises the term persons of interest, but go with that. He has investigated over 400 homicides, so I'll have to figure out exactly why he hates that term. It's either a suspect, he says, or not a suspect. But Vesper Martini here is a friend of the show down where I'm at in Miami. Police found a 2-page document, David, basically a manifesto railing against the healthcare industry, reportedly. What does that tell you, and what do you do with that manifesto? Oh, you're muted. You got to just unmute yourself, Dave. I'm sorry.
Again, more evidence. And I say this all the time. This may be the opportunity to where you want to hear his side of the story. And I think the detectives are going to be down there, and I guarantee the case detective is either there or on his way there. And this is another piece to understanding if this is what the perp in this case, the subject in this case, is the shooter. And it seems throughout this whole process that he looked to make a statement somewhere along the line. I mean, Monopoly money is found in the bag that's left in Central Park. Was that going to be something that he used as a prop to throw on the body? Who knows? Was that as a distraction? We don't know. But that manifesto is very helpful. Maybe it's another lead and another way to use that information when they talk to him.
Just looking at some of the comments. So, Joe Kenny, David, I know you know this, is the chief of detectives. Someone just put in the comments. This is sort of interesting, David. Curious to get your take on this. So apparently, he had a fake ID with the name, and I don't want to release it here because if it's a real person, but it's the first name is Mark with a C and the initial is R. Someone said that they just searched that name on Facebook and it tracks back to someone that looks just like this guy. So that might not be a fake name. It might just be a fake ID. What are they doing with that name right now? And again, I don't want to say it because, if it's a real person uninvolved, you don't want to drag them into it. But what are your thoughts on that?
They're doing a full workup. All the IDs there, you're going to check to make sure if they're fake or real, and every name will be checked. And this is the one thing: this type of investigation has to be thorough because you don't want anything questioned or left to chance. So if he's got 10 IDs, all 10 IDs are going to be checked. If he's got any information in his wallet, we used to call it pocket litter. They're going to exploit that information before they go into the box. And the interrogation would speak to him about this. So nothing here is going to be left to chance. I mean, is it an opportunity? Is it absolutely his name? Could be. You're going to work on what you have. And now you're doing what we call perpology in a sense. Whatever he had in his possession is going to be checked and utilized probably when you go into that interrogation room.
This is interesting. Space Coast, let's make sure we try to get WABC News at 1:30. We're expecting a press conference. Britt K in the chat, a person of interest in the fatal shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson has been ID'd. I want to wait for the mayor here. It's Rob D'Amico, a very Italian-sounding name here. And he's described as an ex, not a graduate, but an ex-Ivy League student. Of course, those are the finest universities in the world, a lot of them up on the Northeast. What about this? I guess we're going to find out from the mayor in a matter of moments. I'll say his first name, Luigi, is the first name. Second, the initial M, Luigi M. I just want to wait. Assuming that they ID him correctly as Luigi M. First of all, I was just asking you, when are we going to get a name? You said probably pretty soon, and this is probably pretty soon. What do you now do with that name, Luigi M? They've got the full name released, but we're waiting to hear that.
Well, again, we talked about they're going to try to find out where he last lived, get search warrants for those, and then start going electronically, all the emails they can identify for him, phone numbers and everything else, again, to start doing that, deeper dive into evidence connected to him. If that's his name and they identify it, they're going to just run down everything: cell phones, addresses, emails, social media accounts, and they're going to start grabbing all that.
I'm doing a quick search. This looks like the guy. I'll tell you that right now. This looks exactly like him for this Luigi M. Says, and I'm looking, I'm not going to tell you where I'm looking because I don't want people, I just want to be careful with this, but it says his home is Honolulu, Hawaii, Rob, and he was at University of Pennsylvania. Is there any, and by the way, they got a photo of him and this guy is absolutely shredded. If this is him, this guy hits the gym often.
Send me the link on text.
I'm going to do that to you right now. I'm going to do that for you right now. What are they doing? This is getting even more and more curiouser, as they say. I'm sending it to you right now, and it looks like we lost David. I don't know if he had to jump off, but by the way, and Space Coast, please keep an eye. We're supposed to, in about a minute, we might be getting a press conference. Rob, I just sent you that. And I am stand by, everybody. Britt K has it in the chat if you guys want to scroll up and see who we're talking about. I just don't want to reveal a name of someone who it is not it. Mish now saying that it has been released widely again. I'm just going to err on the side of caution and wait for yeah, I'm just gonna wait here, see if we get the press conference. John saying the name was released 39 minutes ago. Let me see here. This guy's got a lot. Rob, I'm just looking at his YouTube. His X profile, and he's got things related to utopia, dystopia. David is back here. David Sarney is back. It looks like. David, welcome back.
Yes.
Yeah. So, David, I want to go to you now. There's apparently a name has been released, and we are. Let me bring this up here.
And leveled against a top hip-hop star. Jay-Z
This is the
responds to
top of
accusations that he and Sean
WABC.
Diddy Combs raped a 13-year-old girl. What he's saying about a civil
This
lawsuit
is
just
ABC
filed.
5. I'm going to leave this up. We're waiting on
Acquitted. Daniel Penny found not guilty in the chokehold death of Jordan.
We are waiting on a news conference here from
They may have taken down his Twitter.
Mayor Adams. Yeah, hang on one sec, guys. Not in the studio today, and it's chaos here. So looks like David Sarney might be getting a call, but I am just trying to run the name. There is apparently a name. You see here the other news of the day. Daniel Penny has been acquitted of all charges. So a very busy news day, and I apologize. I'm trying to juggle multiple things, including letting my Fred in here. But David, if you can hear us.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, awesome. There's now a name out there. It's Luigi. I'm not going to give the last name yet, even though people know it. It's been released. Luigi M. He said to have gone to an Ivy League school. I pulled up his Twitter account already, which is still up. Says his place of his home is Honolulu, Hawaii, and that he was a computer science major at University of Pennsylvania. What is going to happen if this is the guy? What are they doing with his social media profile? What are they doing with his actual profile? What are they doing with family members, etc.?
Well, that's all going to be opened up. Everything. There's going to be a major deep dive into everything. If this is the identity of the person, there's going to be a major deep dive. And I know the FBI analytics can do great work. The police department has their accessibility and their tools to do this. So there will not be any stone unturned to go further into this case. And if it is the person of interest, this suspect, I know person of interest is always just like a TV show, but it's, we kind of want to make it feel better. But this suspect, if this is turned to be him, they're going to do as much deep dive into everything from anything he's done. And if he's posted during the time he was out in the field, geolocations, you're going to see all these things come up. I don't think he shut himself down totally during this whole investigation anyway. So anything that's available and accessible for the police to exploit, they're going to.
Not surprisingly, Rob D'Amico, the New York Times now reporting that the handwritten manifesto found on the person of this person detained is very critical of Rob's on the phone, very critical of healthcare companies for putting profits above care. So he's got a manifesto, and he, according to it, is specifically saying that he's angry that they're putting healthcare companies above the profits above the care of the individual. I guess that would be no real surprise, Rob D'Amico. But again, what do you do with that manifesto and those writings?
Well, you'll take a picture of it so that if you start to you want to talk to them about it, but you don't want to put your fingerprints all over it. So again, it's one of those things that are going to process like a piece of evidence, but you want to have the writing so you can read it. So you take a picture of it so that as the detectives come in and they end up wanting to feel like they want to talk to him about that, if he's willing to talk. But that's going to be processed like any other piece of evidence, fingerprints and everything else So they don't want to touch originals.
By the way, now this information is coming out fast and furious. So appreciate if you guys can stay on. Steve Cohen, I know you're listening. Maybe we'll grab somebody else to join them. Rob's been on for a while. Apparently, he was denied mental health services. I just want to caution everybody at the beginning of real big breaking news like this. I'm going to take this live. Hang on one second.
As you said, we know there is a lot of overlap between this man being questioned and the suspect that the NYPD has been looking for. First of all, sources tell us that this person in Pennsylvania had a fake New Jersey driver's license that actually matches the one the NYPD, the suspect, used to check into a Manhattan hostel before the shooting. He has a gun that was similar to the one used in the shooting, and he was traveling through Altoona on a Greyhound bus. Now, you'll remember that the NYPD said he took a Greyhound bus from Atlanta to New York City 10 days before this murder. So just a lot of overlap here. Local law enforcement is telling the NYPD that they think that this is their suspect. NYPD detectives, we are told, are now heading there themselves to question him. Sources telling us that a witness recognized this man when he walked into a McDonald's in Altoona, as you said, from the images that police have been circulating.
Do we know who made the tip via that McDonald's? Was it just a citizen that recognized his face from all these images that we've been seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what police are saying right now, that he walked into this McDonald's and a witness recognized him again from those images that have been circulating. We've really seen them all over social media. And video obtained by ABC News really seems to match police narrative that Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare CEO, was targeted by his shooter. You know, in the video, you mentioned this, you see this man lying in wait. You see him loitering as others wander by, but as soon as Thompson walks up to the Hilton in Midtown, the killer appears to spot his mark. He runs across the street, opens fire. Seems like he was really keeping an eye out specifically for Thompson. And sources tell ABC just a couple of minutes ago, police recovered writings from the person in custody. So they're interested to see those to see what they might reveal about a motive.
All right, Rena, we'll keep checking in.
So more details. We'll keep this up, Space. Let's keep this up in case we get the press conference from Mayor Adams, which is supposed to happen. Rob and David, to you both, the person of interest, now it's being widely reported, so I'm going to put it out there, is a guy named Luigi Mangione, 26 years old, of Towson, Maryland. Was taken into custody Monday morning at McDonald's in Altoona, PA, after this intense manhunt. He has not been charged yet. David, to you, he apparently, like, people know this already, online quotes from the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. The minute I heard manifesto, if you go back and listen, the first person I said it reminded me of was the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, who he raged against the country's medical community, and it appears that this guy looked up to him as a bit of an idol. What's next now that there is a name, David?
No, once you get that name, then I was saying you have a deep dive into it. Everything that he's ever touched, everything he's been involved in is going to be looked at, social media wise, his school records, anything, friends, relatives. If there's anyone around that he knows, wherever he's been, or prior to, obviously they're going to be looking to do search warrants there. And it really comes down to, I think what's going to be is you have a lot of evidence, physical evidence right now. Given the fact you have this manifesto and you're seeing this part, you're reading a little bit more about him, to be prepped to go into that interrogation room, into the box. We call it the box. When you get into that box, these detectives will be prepared, and they're going to utilize anything they know about him from what was on him and what they find out about him. And they're going to walk into the room and just talk and see where it goes. And I really think that this individual, as much as he wanted to, run away, I think he wants his day in the sunshine, in a sense. He wants to actually tell people what happened and why he did this.
So I'm just looking at his X account here. This is definitely him. He goes by @PepMangione on X. Again, it says he's from Honolulu, Hawaii, which apparently he is a native of Towson, Maryland. There's photos. One on the left, I don't know. It's a cartoon. And there's one in the middle that's hard to make out. Rob, I don't know if you can tell what that is. And then on the right is a photo of him, and it does look like he's in Hawaii. And to say that he's in good physical shape is an understatement. Very, very fit looking young guy. He has a tweet that's pinned from December 8th of 22.
All right. If you look at the middle photo, it appears to be pins in his spine or someone's spine. So,
yep, right. Yep. It's an X-ray. It looks like.
Yeah, it's an X-ray, and it appears to be 4 pins in the lower spine. That may lead to something.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely an X-ray with pins in it.
And I almost like if it wasn't his face, I would think that body was yours, Joel. You know,
I wish, man. He writes on this pinned tweet, David Sarney, 7 years ago, I gave my high school senior speech on this topic. Today, and he quotes it, today I'll be talking to you about the future, about topics ranging from conscious artificial intelligence to human immortality. Likely you'll dismiss all this pretty quickly as interesting, but just science fiction. Special report. Here we go. This is the mayor's.
Have been working around the clock. Many of them did not go home to pursue this individual. It was crucial that we were able to remove him off the streets of America, and we were going to seek him out no matter where he was at the time. And so this is a strong person of interest. The police commissioner and chief of detectives will go over where we are right now in the investigation. He matches the description of the identification we've been looking for. He's also in possession of several items that we believe will connect him to this incident. How did we do it? Good old-fashioned police work. The chief of detectives and the police commissioner made the decision to release as much of a photo that we had at the time. We sent it across the country, and someone, a McDonald's employee, did something we ask every American to do. If you see something, say something, but most importantly, do something. And they did. And because of that, we believe we have a strong person of interest to deal with this case. I want to now turn it over to the police commissioner of the city of New York, Commissioner Tisch.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Earlier this morning in Altoona, Pennsylvania, members of the Altoona Police Department arrested Luigi Mangione, a 26-year-old male on firearms charges. At this time, he is believed to be our person of interest in the brazen targeted murder of Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare, last Wednesday in Midtown Manhattan. The suspect was in a McDonald's and was recognized by an employee who then called local police. Responding officers questioned the suspect, who was acting suspiciously and was carrying multiple fraudulent IDs as well as a U.S. passport. Upon further investigation, officers recovered a firearm on his person, as well as a suppressor, both consistent with the weapon used in the murder. They also recovered clothing, including a mask consistent with those worn by our wanted individual. Also recovered was a fraudulent New Jersey ID, matching the ID our suspect used to check into his New York City hostel before the shooting incident. Additionally, officers recovered a handwritten document that speaks to both his motivation and mindset. NYPD detectives are en route to Pennsylvania as we seek to interview the subject further. This apprehension is thanks to the tireless work of the greatest detectives in the world, and of course, the strong relationships we have with our local law enforcement partners. On every level, local, state, and federal, we all serve the same public safety mission. And this case, which captured the attention of an entire nation, is another example of how connected we are and how important it is to work together, share information, and pursue every lead. For just over 5 days, our NYPD investigators combed through thousands of hours of video, followed up on hundreds of tips, and processed every bit of forensic evidence, DNA, fingerprints, IP addresses, and so much more to tighten the net. We deployed drones, canine units, and scuba divers. We leveraged the domain awareness system, Argus cameras, and conducted aviation canvasses. And our detectives also went door to door, interviewing potential witnesses and doing the good old-fashioned police work that our investigators are famous for. This combination of old school detective work and new age technology is what led to this result today. And we must also acknowledge the instrumental role the media and the public played in this case. The images that we shared with the public were spread far and wide, and the tips we received led to the recovery of crucial evidence. We should never underestimate the power of the public to be our eyes and our ears in these investigations. This is the third time in 3 weeks that a member of the public has seen something and said something and done something that led to a high-profile arrest. The triple stabbing homicide in Manhattan, the gunpoint robberies in Queens during which an NYPD officer was shot, and now this. Now, the case will continue through the criminal justice process. And while we are proud of today's accomplishment, we must, of course, remember that a family is in mourning. I want to again extend my sympathies to Brian's family, his co-workers, and all who knew him. Finally, I want to thank the women and men of the NYPD, especially our Detective Bureau personnel, with a strong assist from our intelligence analysts. We also thank the SAC of the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division, Leslie Rodriguez-Bekshis. And I want to commend the staff of the Manhattan DA's office, and especially DA Alvin Bragg. He has been working with us 24/7 on this case, and I am incredibly grateful for his partnership. I'll now pass it along to our great Chief of Detectives, Joe Kenny, who will provide additional information. Chief.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon. As the Commissioner stated earlier, a male was taken into custody today in Altoona, Pennsylvania this morning. He has been identified as Luigi Nicholas Mangione. He's a male, 26 years old. He was born and raised in Maryland. We know he has ties to San Francisco, California, and his last known address was Honolulu, Hawaii. He has no prior arrest history in New York. Members of the NYPD Detective Bureau are currently traveling to Pennsylvania with members of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office to interview this subject. This case was brought to a successful conclusion based on the coordinated effort between numerous NYPD units, including the Intelligence and Counterterrorism Bureau, our federal partners at the FBI, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and of course, members of the Altoona Police Department in Pennsylvania. On Thursday, one day after this crime was committed, the NYPD released a photo of the shooter in this case. This picture was obtained by the NYPD during one of their extensive video canvasses. We took that photograph and we asked for the public's help in identifying this subject, and the public responded. Hundreds of tips began to pour into our hotline. Each tip was investigated thoroughly, and we began to release additional photographs as they came into our possession. The NYPD provided these photos to numerous media outlets. Local, national, and international outlets released the photo via television, print, social media, and online content. Luckily, a citizen in Pennsylvania recognized our subject and called local law enforcement. Members of the Altoona Police Department responded to the call, and based on their investigation, they notified the NYPD. This investigation is still active and ongoing. Thank you very much.
Shooting first, and then we'll. Mark?
I had a couple of questions about the document that he was found in possession with. Can you go a little bit more in depth about those motivations that you mentioned? Was that CEO specifically named in that document? Was there anything more about him wanting to go after others? And also in that document, was there any indication that explains us how the level of detail that he went into killing him? Like, is there anything?
Like I said, that document is currently in the possession of the Altoona Police Department as part of their investigation. But just from briefly speaking with them, we don't think that there's any specific threats to other people mentioned in that document, but it does seem that he has some ill will toward corporate America.
Over here, sir.
MJ?
Chief, was the suspect wearing a mask at the time he was spotted in the McDonald's? And also, criminal cases often have a linchpin. Can you point to a single linchpin that helped crack this case?
There's numerous linchpins in this case, in the fact that we've recovered an enormous amount of forensic evidence, an enormous amount of video, and once again, with your help and the public's help. So I really couldn't put it on one thing, but if I had to, it would be the release of that photograph from the media.
You said he had a passport on him. Do you believe he was trying to flee the country? And also, are you still looking for any evidence in Central Park in regards to the bike?
We had divers in the water yesterday that came up negative results. The passport, we don't believe that he was planning on doing any traveling at this time. We don't think at this point in our investigation, we don't think he was trying to flee the country.
The person at the McDonald's, were they buying food? What were they doing at that exact moment?
He was an employee at the McDonald's.
Right. But what was the suspect doing?
He was sitting there eating.
Will the suspect be brought back to New York and charged here? And when?
We're going to have to work that out with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office in Altoona, Pennsylvania. He's going to be facing gun charges there. And at some point, we'll work out through extradition to bring him back to New York to face charges here, working with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office.
Hi, Anita from the New York Post. I was just hoping to get more details on the capture itself. Did he put up a fight? Did he say anything to cops? And we've also reported that he published online anti-health care industry rantings. Can you share with us some of the services that he posted on?
We're still working through his social media. We're going to do a complete scrub of that. Preliminarily, like I said, he seems that he has some ill will toward corporate America, but that will all come out as part of our investigation. We're not done here. We're still going to be putting this together. We're still going to be working very hard to bring this to a successful conclusion.
The capture itself, did he put up a fight? Did he say anything to police?
I don't have that information.
Oh, sorry. Can you elaborate on how he got there, the path he took from Port Authority and on the George Washington Bridge to Altoona, PA? Same thing.
This just happened this morning. We'll be backtracking his steps from New York to Altoona, Pennsylvania.
I was going to ask if we knew anything, if he took a bus to Philadelphia first and then somehow got to Altoona. But
We're still working on that. We're still working through that.
Brittany, is there any indication that anybody else was helping him from the inside, as far as tracking the CEO's movements?
Once again, we're still working this investigation very hard. It's not at its conclusion yet. That could come out during our investigation, but as of right now, we have no indication that took place.
Chief, did he have any weapons or anything like that with him when he was arrested?
He was in possession of a ghost gun that had the capability of firing a 9mm round and a suppressor.
Can you get into a little bit about the technical aspects of the investigation? I know you deployed an unprecedented amount of technology. You also activated the Sentry program through Intel. Can you talk about how that is going to play into actually building the case as far as cell phone and all of the other technical aspects of what you've done?
In this case, it really came down to technology was the use of drones in Central Park, and really comes down to the video canvas that we did. We used every source of video that we could collect, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours from hundreds of sources, and that helped bring this to where we are right now.
The gun is it believed to be the gun he used in the shooting? And there was some talk that it was a veterinarian type gun. Is that accurate?
No, as of right now, the information we're getting from Altoona is that the gun appears to be a ghost gun, may have been made on a 3D printer. The capability of firing a 9mm round, obviously that will come out during our ballistics testing.
Oliver?
Yeah, Oliver Barnes from the Financial Times. Do you have any indication how long this handwritten, is it a handwritten manifesto that you found on the suspect? And then also whether or not he put it online at all?
Don't know if it's online. As of right now, it's a handwritten 3-page document.
Chief, does he have ties to that area, and was he someone who you knew by name before his arrest?
We believe he may have attended college in Pennsylvania, but like I said earlier, he has ties to Maryland and California and Hawaii.
You knew him by name before today. Was his name on your radar?
Excuse me?
Was his name on your radar? Was he someone who you had been looking into before his arrest?
No, he did not have his name prior to today.
Does he have any prior arrests? I know there were none for New York City, but is there any prior arrests anywhere else in the country?
We have not come across any arrests in the country.
Chief, hi, how are you? On two things. On the ghost gun, is it something you're going to be looking into to see if he made it himself? Can he make that himself? Or would he have to buy the gun the way it was?
No, once again, that'll be part of our investigation as we follow up.
I mean, obviously he's going to face murder charges, but is there any chance that he could face any other charges because he was targeting the CEO and because of his writings and other things that we're now finding on him? Federal charges or
that determination will be made by Alvin Bragg.
Yes, what connections does he have in Pennsylvania that you know of? And are they in Altoona specifically?
We believe he attended college in Pennsylvania.
Does he know anybody in Pennsylvania?
Wouldn't be able to tell you that.
All right, we're going to take one more question from Shooting Marla, and then we're going to go.
You talk about the manifesto having said things against corporations, but specifically United Healthcare, and do you believe that Mangione acted alone?
We believe at this point, our investigation is leaning toward he was acting alone. So, like I stated earlier, we're still working through the investigation. We're not stopping today. And as far as the manifesto, like I said, I don't have the complete details of that. It's in the possession of the Altoona Police Department.
We're going to shift to off
Good. Good job, Chief. Commissioner, Chief Mangione.
We've been listening there to New York City officials confirming a person of interest is now being questioned in the New York City murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. They say he's identified as 26-year-old Luigi Mangione. A nationwide manhunt has been underway since Thompson was shot and killed outside a New York City hotel on Wednesday. Now police are saying they're questioning Mangione in Altoona, Pennsylvania, saying among other things he was carrying fake IDs, a written document, and a gun similar to the one used in the assassination-style killing. I want to bring in ABC senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katursky covering the story for us from the very beginning.
We're going to listen into this for a little
What do you
while.
make of what officials are saying here and how many things they found on Mangione's person?
Authorities said they did not have his name, the name Luigi Mangione, before a heads-up McDonald's employee in Altoona, Pennsylvania, recognized him from images police had shared through the media around the world, and police credited that individual with recognizing the person, calling police who were able to take him into custody, where he's now charged on gun offenses. He had a 9mm ghost gun capable of firing a 9mm round, similar to the murder weapon in the Brian Thompson case. The authorities credited good old-fashioned police work with getting that image out from the countless hours of surveillance footage from 60,000 surveillance cameras in New York City, and then the heads-up member of the public who called it in. But until that moment, Diane, they did not know who their suspect was.
And Aaron, what more can you tell us about the fake IDs they say this person of interest had on him and this written document they're saying may speak to motivation here?
These writings are described as having some kind of ill will toward corporate America, according to the chief of detectives, Joe Kenny. I can tell you from several law enforcement sources that they speak of anger and frustration toward the insurance industry and may give the authorities some window into Luigi Mangione's alleged motivation. The ID was fake. A New Jersey ID that was very similar to the fake ID the suspect used to check into a hostel on Manhattan's Upper West Side And those clues give police confidence that this is their guy.
All thanks, they say, to someone seeing something and saying something. And I want to bring in our former FBI agent, ABC News contributor, Brad Garrett. Brad, they're calling this a strong person of interest. What do you think that says for where this investigation is heading?
I think they appear to really have the right guy. And I'll tell you one thing quickly, what typically is the downfall of defendants is keeping things that attach them to a case. The gun, the manifesto, and those things are going to be critical to prosecuting him. And so that's really, it just is unbelievable and consistent with other cases, in particular in these high profile cases where it's clearly cause driven. We don't know exactly what that means, but he clearly was on a mission.
So Brad, what are you watching for next now? What questions need to be answered to advance this now?
So the key is, will he talk to NYPD when they get there to really break down motivation, where the weapon came from? In other words, everything they can get from him that links him to this case. I'll tell you, based on experience, that may take 5 minutes. That may take 3 or 4 hours. It really depends whether he wants to. Some people want to brag, Diane, about what they have done because it's important to them. And we'll see if they can get him to that point.
All right. So again, a person of interest now in custody in the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Our thanks to Brad Garrett and Aaron Katursky. Our coverage will continue on ABC News Live and abcnews.com. And David Muir will have the latest here on World News Tonight. I'm Diane Macedo in New York. Have a great day.
And then there was one, and that would be me. Able to pull up, shout out goes to Mish Cavernos. I'm going to go over that press conference in a moment. He has a very active Facebook page, Luigi Mangione. He has now been ID'd as the shooter who killed CEO Brian Thompson, of course, the CEO of United Healthcare Group. And obviously a big day for the NYPD. Hang on 1 second for me. I'll be 2 seconds. Apologies for that. Managing home and work simultaneously today. But here's a photograph from his Facebook page. You can see how young he is there, the very distinctive eyebrows. Here's another photo. He has a very active Facebook page. And so you can tell just by looking at this, it looks eerily similar to the photos that the NYPD had put out. These are the photos right here. If you look at the second one from the left, that is now said to be Luigi Mangione. By the way, the chief of detectives, Joe Kenny, kudos to him and his team for hard work. It did come down to apparently an elderly person at a McDonald's who thought they recognized him and said something. You heard the police commissioner say it was the third time in as many weeks that the public has helped catch somebody, but it was these images that the NYPD was able to get that helped break this case wide open. Again, you're looking now at, we didn't know who it was this morning or even an hour ago. This is 26-year-old Luigi Mangione, or purported to be. Obviously, he's going to have his day in court. Shout out to Peony Pink in South Australia, the world riveted by this case. This is him hiding in plain sight, and this is him on his Facebook page. If you take a close look at the second from the left, boom, this is the Facebook page. There are a lot more photos. Just so you all know, I'm going to sign off in a little bit, but we're going to come back on with a full show, including some profilers today, probably at 5 p.m. By the way, if you appreciate the content, please hit that subscribe button. There is a Patreon link where we put up court documents and photos of this nature on our Patreon page for Patreon subscribers, which goes a long way. But thank you all for being here. I just want to go back over this press conference. We heard from sort of embattled New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who's dealing with his own issues of indictments right now. He came out and said, look, we were going to seek this person out no matter what, there was a strong person of interest that they just discovered in Altoona, Pennsylvania, thanks to this elderly person who called it in. Altoona PD then contacted immediately the NYPD. That's how this all kind of broke and played out this morning. The mayor then went on to say that this guy, Luigi Mangione, is in possession or was in possession of several items that the mayor believes will link him to the case. Keep in mind, the mayor is a retired member of the NYPD. So he's got some understanding and competence in this. The mayor said it was good old-fashioned police work. And then the commissioner, Commissioner Tisch, came on. She was just appointed recently. She also said, look, the Altoona PD arrested this guy, Luigi Mangione, earlier today, 26 years old, from Towson, Maryland. That's Towson, Towson, Maryland. There's a university there. It's a university town. She said, the commissioner did, that on his person, he had a U.S. passport, multiple IDs, and a fraudulent New Jersey ID, the same ID that was used to check into a hostel in Manhattan, in Upper Manhattan, when he was in New York City. She also went on to say that he was in possession of what is being described as a manifesto. She did not use that word. The commissioner did not use that word, but said that it was a document indicating motive and mindset. And sort of by looking at his Facebook profile, you can tell for sure that he was kind of an ideologue. He went to Ivy League school. It's not clear whether he graduated or not from the University of Pennsylvania, one of the best schools in the country. I want to pull this back up for a moment. We're getting some more.
And so
this is live coverage of ABC News.
You're going to find, I'm going to guess, or they're going to find a lot more as far as writings are concerned, or sort of this focus on the healthcare industry, because this became, in my view, a cause-driven crime that he wanted to avenge for, in his mind, the bad things that the insurance industry, the healthcare insurance industry, does to people, maybe including himself. And it also is the reason I think you see him in what pictures are caught, or even at the hostel. He's smiling, and at the crime scene, he's sort of methodical, but doesn't run initially. He's in his comfort zone, and people tend to get in their comfort zone when they feel like they're really doing something that needs to be done, and it's really up to them to pull it off. And so they're going to be very focused.
And it's interesting, that you bring up just this whole conversation about healthcare, Brad, because the reactions that have emerged on social media, I mean, they've been nonstop, and just looking at what people are saying, and just the anger toward health insurers, and that's going to be a whole nother discussion. And then, Brian, right now, authorities say they're getting him on firearms charges, but if you start piecing this all together, clearly there could be many more charges at hand here.
Absolutely. And the reason why they've got him on firearm charges now is because in the place in which he was arrested in Pennsylvania, that's the only crime that occurred within that jurisdiction. He's got a ghost gun, or a gun that's not made from a corporation, but is made by a private individual. It doesn't have a serial number, so you can't track it, hence the ghost aspect of it. But what will ultimately happen, he'll probably be arraigned in Pennsylvania, and then there'll be a warrant for him in New York as a person of interest, and he will probably be brought to New York because there are greater charges in New York than there are in Pennsylvania. And I would imagine that he would be indicted on murder and probably other related charges based on where the investigation goes, on top of those gun charges. So he'll have cases, in essence, in 2 different states.
A lot to follow. Rena Roy, Aaron Katursky, Brad Garrett, Brian Buckmeyer, thanks to all of you. Well, Daniel Penny was found not guilty in that choke.
So that again is live coverage of ABC News streaming. They just had the press conference with police. This is from Stacy. I'm assuming that this is something that has leaked out, although I'm not 100% sure. These parasites had it coming, and I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done. He wrote chilling words from an idealistic young guy. This is from his Facebook page. There are many photos there. We are, by the way, going to do a full wrap-up show today at 5. Please follow me if you want the exact times. I post them on Twitter at Podcast STS, on Instagram at Surviving the Survivor. Ned Smith giving me gruff for saying idealistic. I think in his mind that's what he is. Obviously, he went about it the wrong way. This is an interesting comment. If there is any silver lining here, what I pray is we don't ignore this. In this is how very much our healthcare system is broken and has to change. The feeling folks are feeling are real. I would agree with that. No one should be celebrating a murder, but there are major issues with the healthcare system, and hopefully this story, if there's any silver lining, brings this to light. I'm just trying to monitor. Already there's a on X, there's a, I don't want to say it's trending, but people are tweeting out free Luigi Mangione, which is I guess sort of expected in this day and age, and with the circumstances that unfolded. I'm grabbing some pictures here live so I can give them to the COE for the show later. It looks like one of his pictures is with his mother, what appears to be his mother in could be, I guess, any relative in Hawaii, but it's going to be a very difficult day, obviously, for the family of Brian Thompson, who apparently are at the funeral, or will be at the funeral, for their father and husband soon, and also for the family of Luigi Mangione, who are now finding out that their son, their brother, what have you, is now being accused of this crime. So all this unraveling as we speak. I'm just going to head back to this press conference. I left off with the police commissioner speaking. She said that they combed through thousands of tips. They used canines, drones, but old-fashioned New York City police work. She called them the best detectives in the world, that they went door to door. And then she went on to say, never underestimate the power of the public, saying that 3 high-profile cases have been solved in just the last 3 weeks, thanks to the public in New York City. And then obviously today out in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Joe Kenny, he spoke. He is the chief of detectives. He was the last one to speak. He is a cop's cop. A lot of our guests are friends with him. You can tell just from the way he speaks. He had a prepared statement, I'm sure for legal reasons. He basically, again, revealed the person's name, says it is Luis Nicholas Mangione. He has ties to San Francisco. Of course, that is the computer tech area of the world. His last known address was Honolulu. He has no prior arrest history in New York. That's all they know right now. The chief of detectives went on to say that a citizen, an elderly citizen in Pennsylvania, recognized this person. They called the Altoona PD. Altoona PD notified the NYPD. He was asked if there was any kind of resistance to the arrest, and the chief of detectives did not know that at that time. They said he was in possession, this is really interesting, of a ghost gun and a suppressor, a ghost gun. People had ID'd this gun, and it seems, and I have to get a professional take on this because I personally honestly have no idea, but maybe he was able to make this with a 3D printer, but it mimicked another gun. There'll be more information about the weapon, but apparently he was in possession of a ghost gun This is true. His name is Luigi Mangione. That's one photo. This is another photo of him. And also of a suppressor, otherwise known in common parlance as a silencer. So all these things fit almost perfectly together. Again, this is a 26-year-old man, but he's really probably a kid in his thinking still, and not making any excuses for him, but he's going to be in for a long life now. An absolutely horrific choice he made, and now he's going to pay the consequences. It seems like a lot of the pieces of the puzzle fit together. Been on the air for 2 hours and 29 minutes and 48 seconds. I'm going to take it out to the 2 hour and 30-minute mark. Huge thanks to the community here at Surviving the Survivor. The headline again, a 26-year-old named Luigi Mangione from Towson, Maryland, is under arrest on weapons charges in Altoona, PA. NYPD detectives are either on their way there or there. He is the suspect believed to have committed the crime against CEO Brian Thompson, 50 years old. Brian Thompson was when he was gunned down with that shot in the back. And this guy, Luigi Mangione, reportedly had a manifesto on him when he was arrested, speaking out about the healthcare industry. At this point, it appears like he is a lone actor, but obviously a ghost gun, meaning I guess no serial number. And you see Annalee Finch here adding on, a ghost gun is a homemade firearm that is assembled without a manufactured license or serial number. So McSpunky says it best, this kid is no hero. Some people will worship this guy, sadly, but he is no hero. He's going to be ultimately convicted, I believe, of these crimes, and he'll be nothing more than a criminal in probably a federal or state prison for the rest of his life. And handsome guy, young guy, went to an Ivy League school. Unclear if he graduated it. He had his whole life ahead of him. He could have worked to make the healthcare system better through a traditional way, but obviously he chose the wrong path. I'm seeing a lot of friends of his on his Facebook page, and they've got to be absolutely just horrified at the fact that their friend now is in custody in Altoona, PA, for this horrific crime. Today, while it is about the arrest of this person, Luigi Mangione, there's a funeral for this man, Brian Thompson, who is the CEO, was the CEO of United Healthcare Group. No matter what you think of the healthcare system, I've said it 1,000 times, I'm going to end with it. Murdering somebody is not a way to fix the problem. And now that lesson is going to be learned the hard way from Luigi Mangione. We're going to be back at 5 p.m. Eastern time with a complete wrap-up show on all the day's events and hear from the best guests. Shout out to Special Agent Scott Duffy, Special Agent Rob D'Amico, Rich Kaprowski of the NYPD, and David Sarney of the NYPD, who were here with all of us for much of the 2 hours now and 33 minutes. Love you, America. Our thoughts, our prayers, and everything else are with Brian Thompson. A suspect has been caught, Luigi Mangione, 26 years old, in the murder of Brian Thompson. See you at 5 p.m. Eastern.